Trying to stretch to the edge. What a hurl by Jackson! Highlight reel touchdown! The season is going to be Louisville and Louisville, national champion.
Hello again, everybody. I am your host tonight, Kyle, joined by co-hosts Patrick and Josh, and we are back with another episode of the Third Banner Pod. And that's right, boys. It's the week we've been waiting for, Notre Dame week. We are undefeated going into this week. We thought they would be. They did have one slip up. Nonetheless, top 20 matchup, huge game in South Bend. It's time, boys. And, both teams have a lot at stake heading into this game. But before we get there, I always want to ask, how are you boys doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's finally getting close to sweater weather, which in Iowa, it's a thing, dude. We all look forward to it all year round. And so I'm excited. I'm ready to put my t-shirt away for a little while.
Oh man, not me.
I'm not ready for winter, Kyle. I know I feel the same way you do about winter, but fall and football and a bonfire as dude, top yourself.
I love it, man. To me, fall lasts about 2 weeks and then it's winter. But it's also subjective when winter starts. For me, winter is anything that's consistently below 60 and it just gets lower. I hate cold weather. 55, I can do it if I have a long sleeve shirt on and either a jacket or a heavy sweatshirt. I can do it, or a hoodie, a heavy hoodie. I can do it. But to me, once you start getting below 60, it quickly gets to 50 and below. And at that point, it's winter to me. Once you hit about 50 degrees and it's cloudy and it's usually more windy, it's winter. And so to me, fall lasts, it's super hot and you get 2 to 3 good weeks and then it's winter. But I'm with you in that little, I don't know how it is in Iowa, but here, that's how I feel it. In that little window, I do enjoy it.
Yes. No. Hey, and I think
been, man.
Yeah.
It's good, man. I'm a 40 or over guy. I don't need it to be 55, man. 40 and over is good. I can wear enough clothes to where I'm comfortable. So I love fall too. But yeah, no, I've been good, man. I've had a little stomach bug today, so not full Pat energy, but I'm here and I'm ready to talk some Notre Dame. And also I want to say, I sit here and I watch our intro when we're getting ready to go on. And for some reason, the basketball highlights and that got my juices flowing today, because I know it's Notre Dame week, but basketball is right around the corner and we are going to have a competent team and a competent coach this year. So I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. So with it being Notre Dame week, I've got the brisket in the fridge de-thawing. I don't know where Wes is at. I know Wes listens to this show, and he's always joking with me about the brisket. So it is ready. It's on deck. Unfortunately, it's a really busy weekend for a lot of people. So props to those going to the game. I'm kind of tied to this area for that weekend. But A lot of people going to the game, but then you got like Louder Than Life. You got weddings. You got all kind of stuff here and there. So my wife's a little annoyed that I went ahead and got the brisket out, but it's a freaking Notre Dame game. And we're going to Florida soon. So there's just not a good time to do the brisket. And like I said, she's like, well, why don't we do it in late October, early November? And again, Josh, to me, that's when it's going to be ice cold for me. So I'm like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not doing it then. I don't even want, I'm not going to smoke a brisket and freeze while I do it. So anyway, I don't know. I get cold to the bone. It's weird. Like I remember in the military, they'd line us up out there and I'd be like shivering and everybody else would be fine. I don't know what it is, but nonetheless, brisket's out. It's ready to go. How are you guys feeling going into this game? Josh, I'll start with you. How are you feeling? First thought heading into this weekend.
On first thought, I'm feeling optimistic, but like cautiously optimistic. Like it's hard not to be excited about our team with the start to the season that we've had. We've done just about everything you can ask. The stars have showed up. I think a lot of people said, who's going to step up when Colin Lacey's out, and Ja'Cory Brooks has been that guy. He's been awesome. And I think Bell even has picked it up the last couple of games. So
he has. I'll give him that.
Yep. And so I feel like the squad, like they're showing up and they're winning the games like they're supposed to. So it's hard not to be optimistic. And the last time we played Notre Dame, it went well. So it's like, I feel pretty good about it. The one thing that I think I would have circled before the season that is still kind of a concern now would be the defense that Notre Dame has. I mean, they have an excellent defense, and especially against the pass. So I have reasons to be a little skeptical, but at the same time, like I'm still bullish on this team, so I feel cautiously optimistic.
What about you, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, my big thought going into this week is you gotta clean up the small stuff. We can't now, and I can complain a lot about the penalties. Some of the penalties last week, I thought some of them were BS, but you can't have drive killing penalties. You got to be disciplined on defense and stay in your lane, especially when we're playing zone. Just those little things if we want to win this game, we've got to clean up the little things. Happy to be 3-0, but I don't think we've played to the caliber that I've expected us to play yet. And it's not that I see the talent out there. I just think there's some things that need to be cleaned up.
I agree 100%. I actually rewatched the Georgia Tech game because when you're at the game, like I'm watching the game, but it's really hard to fully pick up on the scheme as you're, in a rowdy, raucous environment, scorching hot. I'm just glad I finally got my voice back today in time for the pod because I was screaming at the refs so much and screaming on all the fourth downs that, they went for it that my throat was just done for like the last 2 days. So glad to be able to be on here and be back, but I was able to sit down in a calm environment and knowing the outcome. And then you can really focus on scheme.
Definitely.
And I definitely saw some things that I'm surprised that we're still struggling with on defense. I'm starting to get a little pessimistic that we're going to fix it, if I'm being honest, because it's some of the similar things that I saw against Jacksonville State in that second quarter, and it was way worse in the whole entire game against Georgia Tech. Now, we had a bend but don't break mentality. I don't want to just totally crap on the defense. They made some key stops, and we got the blocked field goal. We also had, took that back for a touchdown. Quincy Riley knocks the ball backwards, and per year gets the second touchdown of the year. So 14 points, but I don't think you can rely on that as a consistent thing to get 14 points like that off of crazy turnovers. And they also had another missed field goal, which we also had one, so that canceled each other out. I was impressed. I'm still impressed with our offense. Tyler Shuck's a beast. He can make all the throws, and I'm really impressed with what he's able to do out there. I can't say on the pass protection's been solid. It could be a little better in spurts. Run protection was awful. It was awful. And that gives me pause going into this game because they have a much better front line than Georgia Tech.
Mhm.
And that, and I don't want to pick on Mendoza in particular, but he was getting cooked out there.
Mhm.
And all reports all offseason were that he was one of our better offensive linemen. And so I'm hoping he just had an off game, but it wasn't just him. So I don't want to, but like, I've heard a lot of the radio shows this week, for example, talking about, well, maybe our running backs aren't as good as we thought, or who should be the starting running back. Maybe Maurice Turner injury was worse than we thought. Maybe the talent that we had it was because of who we played. But I'm not understanding where anyone can get any sort of litmus test on their running backs from the Georgia Tech game because they had no blocking. Like
Yeah.
Nowhere to run.
like literally 80% of the runs, there was no hole at all. And as soon as they handed the ball off, there was a Georgia Tech defender in the backfield. And Chaney was a half step slow. I think his injury is slowed down some. If I had one argument about the running backs, the two Browns should be starting and sharing more carries. Either one of them can start, but like Isaac Brown needs more carries than that when Chaney is hurt. But I will also say that in this game, it didn't matter who was running back there. Like put Judkins back there from Ohio State, put him back there. He's not going to do anything because as soon as he gets the ball, he's going to get stuffed. And so that is a glaring issue. And I just hope that they really work on that because this game, and I think the thing that makes me the most nervous about this game is the weather because Notre Dame is a running team. Notre Dame's strength is running the football. They average 6.4 yards per carry overall, and they have three players that average at least 7 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Love is a beast. 46 carries, 339 yards on the year. That's 7.4 yards per carry. Riley Leonard, the quarterback, 7 yards a carry, 322 yards. And remember, that includes sacks in college. So I don't know how many times he's been sacked. But if he's been sacked, that's also taking away from that. And he's still averaging 7 yards a carry. So he's busting plays wide open.
He's been sacked 4 times. So
sacked 4 times, and he's still averaging 7 yards a carry. So he's had some big runs. And then Jadarian Price, 193 yards, 7.4 yards per carry. And that's 12 touchdowns between the three of them rushing. So the reason I bring that up is because the early forecast shows the hurricane remnants, wind, and rain. That means the passing game is going to be mitigated. So on their end, that's their strength. And on our end, we were getting cooked all day by Georgia Tech. So we have to really improvise on that side of the ball when it comes to our run protection in particular. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that on offense is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think one thing to note about the Georgia Tech game is we only got 8 possessions. One of the possessions was a one-play safety. So you take that out, and then another possession was running out the clock at the end of the game. So you take those 2 possessions out, you got 6 offensive possessions, which is tiny in today's college football landscape. So we never really got a flow on offense because we didn't have the ball very long. We didn't have the ball consistently. We got 2 touchdowns from our defense and special teams. So you hope that played some kind of role in some of the run weakness. Because running is one of those things you've got to get into a flow. Passing is too, but protecting the run and getting the line to get to the second level and stuff. I think that's something that usually you'll see happens with more repetition in a game. So you hope that improves, but you couldn't take much from those first 2 weeks. Obviously, our running game was killer those first 2 weeks, but we're up against a talent level that's significantly weaker than ours. So when the first time you play someone who should have similar talent and you can't run the ball, that's concerning, especially when you go up to South Bend and playing a Notre Dame defense that you're going to have both your run and pass game to score some points. So, yeah, I think that I'm right there with you, Kyle. This week they have to figure out something on the offensive side of the ball to get some open running lanes.
I think we need
to
some
take
misdirection
pressure off the
too.
shot.
We need
Yeah,
some
I think they
misdirection.
need.
Like it's
Yeah.
crazy to me that one thing I've not seen, and I keep hearing we're holding back. Well, Georgia Tech isn't the game to hold back. Now we did have a nice trick play that was called back for a BS. I know somebody in one of the Twitter spaces was adamant that was a block below the waist, but I've watched it. It's a height difference. That's literally why it happened, and you shouldn't have called it. But nonetheless, besides that play, I'm just not seeing a whole lot of ingenuity in the run game as far as like, okay, yeah, you want to be able to pound it right up the middle, and you want to be able to just like run it down people's throats. But after a while, when you see that's not happening, you have to get more creative. And so I'm hoping this week we see a little more misdirection, see maybe some jet sweeps. I mean, throw something in there, man. Like some more tosses. Now we had one toss on a Tyler Shuck audible. It was a bad audible. He did not read the defense correctly, and then he ended up slipping anyway. But I mean, there's just different ways to get guys involved besides what we've done with the run game. And if our offensive line can't improve enough, I think you really have to be more creative. And Isaac Brown needs to be a much bigger part of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you got to get him on that. To your point, like when you get him the ball, you've got to be creative. You got to get him outside the numbers. That's where he's gonna be a big time asset, not running up the middle and stuff like that. So no, I completely agree with you, Kyle.
Yeah, I think you want to try to get Brown in space, which is kind of what you both alluded to. So, like, get him outside, throw a screen to him. Like, you have to figure out some way to get him involved in running, outside the numbers because of, the type of front that Notre Dame has. I think Georgia Tech is not the same rushing defense that Notre Dame is, and they still exposed us a little bit. And so it's like, I don't know that I want to test that again and watch a bunch of, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, because you try to run it up the gut twice, or you run it up the gut and you go for a bomb down the sidelines, and then you have a long 3rd down against Notre Dame. I mean, especially if the weather is junky, like you said, Kyle, like
that worries me.
Dude. Yeah,
because I'm seeing 21 mile per hour winds with 39, 40 mile an hour wind gusts. Now that could change. There's still a little bit of time for that to change, but my God, if that's what it is, there is no pass game. There's just not.
No.
And that's combined with rain off and on. Like there's no passing in that. So then you're relegated to running the ball, and that definitely favors them. So let's just hope that clears up. I don't know. And so my other big takeaway from the Georgia Tech game to carry into Notre Dame is on the defensive side, and I this has been a problem. It goes. I watched this in the USC game in particular last year, and it just continues. It continued in Jacksonville State in the second quarter, and we saw it again, much more so against Haynes King, who typically doesn't throw the ball a whole lot. Which everybody's like, well, Riley Leonard's going to struggle passing the ball. Well, Haynes King is a better passer overall than Riley Leonard, but not to the extent where he should be throwing for over 300 yards. And what I saw is in the slot, we're having a lot of trouble communicating with each other. The safety and the slot defender are not on the same page. And this has been a thing where I saw plays where the slot defender over pursues and jumps ahead. I don't know if they're trying to jump the route or if they're pretending to bring pressure, but they get blown right past. And then the safety's way back. So the safety's not in a position to, close that gap. And so what happened was Haynes King was just picking that apart for 15, 20-yard like darts, and it was too easy. And then the other problem is there were other times where I feel like the safety would jump a route, and then
Like at the end of the half.
that happened 2 or 3 different times, including at the end of the half, and then like when Devin Neal jumped a route, and so then they blew right past them. And so that's been an issue. That's been an ongoing thing, and it kind of concerns me. I feel like they started to adjust in the second half towards the end of the game, like in the fourth quarter of that. But everybody's like, well, Riley Leonard's not going to be able to do that. But that's just not true if we don't fix that. And I would like to see us bring more disguise blitzes like from the middle of the field too. It seems like we almost always blitz from the edges. And so that becomes pretty predictable if you're literally just going to blitz from the slot sides and then you're not communicating well. You're going to pick that apart. And so, like, disguise your blitzes a little better. Bring some pressure up the middle a little bit more. But the biggest thing is having better communication between your slot defender and your safety, because that really concerned me in the Georgia Tech game.
Yeah, I think one thing that maybe I did feel good about going back to the Georgia Tech game that we could carry over to Notre Dame is like Conga has really exploded on the line. Like he's playing excellent.
Him
like,
and Logan both.
Him and Logan, like, you know, I think we talked about it before the show a little bit, but like, you know, with Gelati getting doubled in certain instances or the team scheming specifically against him, like putting an extra tight end or whatever the case may be on that side, like Conga and Logan have really stepped up. But, you know, Conga, sometimes his impact doesn't show up as much on tape because he's not getting sacks and jumping the snap count like Logan is. But like, man, in this game, with the way that they run the ball and having a running quarterback, like he made some crazy penetration, like on the line. Like he was instantly across the line, stopping the play ahead of where it should be. So like, dude, I feel really good about him. I feel really good about Logan. But man, Pat, we talked about it in the last episode, like lane integrity is so important. And there were a couple of times we got way too wide and Haynes King just bolted straight up the side. Like, dude, Notre Dame, they have, I think, the 5th best running back attack in the country. Like, we need to bring our A game, and like gap integrity cannot be an issue.
Yeah.
That's the other one, Josh, and that was the third one. I knew there was something, but yeah, I'm glad you got to throw that one out there, because that's another thing that we continue to do is I don't know if we're not it's not resonating in practice. The read option.
The read option gives us trouble.
It gives us a lot of trouble, and I know it's tough for every team to defend, and that's why people run the read option. But us in particular, like, I'm kind of calling out our defense, and I probably sound a little negative, but I'm not impressed so far. I'm not, because on paper, this is the best defense, the best defensive roster, both starters and depth-wise, in my lifetime. And I'll stand by that. We've had some good ones under Charlie Strong. Mike Cassidy had a couple of good ones under Petrino 1. But overall, like, I'm telling you, top to bottom, to me, on paper, this is our best defense. And the struggles, you can tell it's coaching, and it's got to get better. And I hate to call it out like that, but that's just the truth. Because when I watch the film, I'm like, these guys are not communicating correctly. I saw a lot right before they snapped the ball, a lot of confusion on some plays, and those tended to be some of the bigger plays that they had too, where we're kind of like, it's just like we didn't know what to do. And then the gap integrity, especially on the read option plays. It's like, it's just too easy to trick our defenders. And that means they're not practicing or they're not picking it up. And when the whole defense is having problems communicating and picking these things up, that's a problem that goes to coaching. It's not just one guy out there getting burned. It's been everybody. And I did see somebody mention Quincy Riley, but I don't think he's been that bad, Landon. I do think the play he got burned on for like 30 or 40 yards was right after he got injured. At first, I was mistaken because I did send a tweet that said that he came up gimpy off the punt return, but somebody pointed out, they said actually it was the play where he knocked the ball backwards into the end zone and somebody walloped him trying to get to the ball. And when on rewatch, I did see where he came up gimpy then. That being said, I wish they would take him away from the punt return game because that's just not helping. I think that made it worse because he got walloped on a punt return.
Yeah.
And I think his injuries really, you could tell on that one play where he got burned, it was a step slow.
And he's not usually a step slow.
No.
So my thoughts on defense, I do think the read option gives us some trouble, but I think our run defense is elite.
Yeah.
I think it's especially when you're talking about regular running back runs. And I even think like the read option seems to have given us trouble in the first half of the last two games. And then we've kind of fixed it at halftime. Haynes King in the second half was not an effective runner. But yeah, no. So the one thing that gives me hope against Notre Dame is that elite run defense, because we're talking about strength versus strength. They're obviously a very good running team. We're a good run defense. So if we can use our strength to shut down their strength, I think it gives us a little bit of an edge. I do agree with both of you guys, though. You've got to figure out how to defend the middle of the field. The middle of the field is the easiest. It's the most dangerous place to pass the ball, but it's also the easiest place to pass the ball when you've got open receivers. You don't have the sideline as an extra defender. I think you either mentioned it on the show or before the show, Josh, but our safeties have to play better. We seem to it all goes back to the discipline thing. We seem to lose discipline in our safeties. When you play safety, there's most of the time, especially with what we play, you're playing zone. So you're covering the back end of a play. And we seem to, as Kyle said, jump routes at the safety position a lot, which you just can't do. You have to be disciplined at the safety position so you don't get beat over the top. And there's been too many big plays against our secondary. And you've got to clean that up. And I'm with Kyle. I think a lot of it's scheme related. I think we haven't done a great job at pressuring the QB into mistakes in the first 3 weeks. Even against the first two opponents, Austin P, we got a lot of quarterback pressure. Jacksonville State, I didn't think we did a great job. And I think it goes back to what Kyle said. I don't think we disguise our blitzes. I don't think we bring blitzes from different areas of the field. So the hope as a fan is that we have kept a lot back, especially on defense. Offense, yes, I'd like us to be more inventive, but the passing defense just has to improve. If we want to have the season that we all expect us to have, we've got to do a better job. I think our linebackers have been decent. I really think Clark has taken a step forward this year. He made some big plays against Georgia Tech. But yeah, the safeties, I'm disappointed in the safeties, and we got to get healthy at the cornerback position. I think we got a lot of talent there, but when you got 3 or 4 guys injured, you get to the, third, fourth string, and that gets a little scary too. So
I'm with Louisville Cardinals in here overall about number 3 pressure rate, and Georgia Tech does have a good offensive line. I'm not as concerned about the pressure on the quarterback overall, though we do go through droughts, I will say, where he'll drop back, like Haynes King will drop back 6 or 7 straight times without much pressure. But overall, I think we go in spurts, at least in that game, where we did apply pressure. But it really does come down to communication on defense on those read option plays, and the safeties and the slot defenders understanding where their position needs to be on those plays. And that's been a thing. Like that has been a bugaboo of ours. I want to say UK exploited it with wheel routes a lot of times. Isolate our linebackers, and then they would over pursue, and the safety would be too far back. But then other times the safety jumps the entire route. Like in the USC game, we saw that a lot. And they just and here we are again. So we've got to clean that up. I don't care if Riley Leonard's a great passer or not, because it's not going to be hard if we don't. And so do want to see that. But I did kind of want to talk about Notre Dame. We talked about Notre Dame's offense. Their strength is running the football, running the football, running the football. So on defense, I think the biggest thing that makes me nervous is Notre Dame is known for turning the football over. And it's our first road game. And I know they've got a couple of really, really good players. They have Howard Cross is a really good defensive tackle. Now, last year, shut him down. Didn't do a whole lot against us. But normally, he's really good. Benjamin Morrison's a really good cornerback. He's their best cornerback. And Xavier Watts is probably their best defensive player, in my opinion. Xavier Watts is a turnover machine. He's an interception machine. He's already come out this week and said that when they've watched our film, that they feel like even though we're protecting the football, they're seeing a lot of missed opportunities that the teams we played so far have not taken advantage of, where we should have a lot more turnovers. And so he's very confident that they are going to exploit those opportunities. So we have to be ready for that. It's going to be a loud crowd. Now, we're going to have some fans there. That helps us. But they're going to have, of course, a lot of their fans there. It's their home field. So this is Tyler Shuck's first road game in a year. So he's going to have to deal with some things he hasn't had to deal with in the first 3 weeks. And they are going to be out there with the expectation that they can put us in positions to turn us over. They really feel like they can. So we have to do some things on offense that we just haven't done yet. And, gamesmanship wise, you don't know who's going. We don't officially know who's going to return, but I'll just say that if you can get a key piece back that changes your offense, you have to hope those key pieces are fully recovered, that they're in game shape, they're not rusty, and you gotta use them to do some things that we haven't done all year. Like, this is the game, barring the weather being awful, which is again a concern, but this is the game to open the playbook completely up and do some things you haven't done.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the game you want to see, some of the Jeff Brom, Purdue against their big time teams. When he was there, he opened up the playbook. So you're hoping he does that versus Notre Dame. I will say that's an interesting comment from Watts. And listen, I'm not a football film study expert, but I will say that I do think, and I'm sure that he probably saw some stuff on tape to take advantage of, but I have been extremely impressed by Tyler Shuck and his protection of the ball. There are very few throws this year where I was like, that's a horrible throw. You just threw that into coverage or against three guys or into a spot where you shouldn't have thrown it. I think he's been great at protecting the ball. But yeah, man, they're Notre Dame, listen, they had that slip up, but they're a smash mouth, old school football roster. I don't think they're going to blow out a ton of good teams this year. They blew out Purdue a couple weeks ago, but they're going to be in every game. And, you've got to be able, in my opinion, to control the line on both sides. And I think we can do that, but also, to add to that, Kyle, I think you're right. You've got to get more inventive with your defensive schemes and with some of your offensive plays, especially as we talked about earlier, the running game. My key player in this game that I think needs to have a big game for us is Isaac Brown. I think you've
Oh man, that's mine too.
I think
Yeah,
I think you've
that's
got to
that's the one.
find ways
Yeah.
to get him, the ball and get him the ball in space to where he can make things happen, because he's the athlete on our offense that can kind of neutralize a good defense if you get him the ball in the correct position.
Yeah. I think it's time for me, like who can really step up to help us this week? I think it's the tight ends. Like we've seen a few flash plays from the tight ends, and last week, I mean, we really started to, like Johnson really kicked it up, and like he showed his run after the catch ability. Like he just looked awesome. So you have that big splash play from Redmond earlier in the year. Like we've seen a little bit of what the tight ends can do, but they need to be able to help sustain drives in this game, because there's going to be times where it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Notre Dame has a very stout defense. Like you need to have your go-to like bread and butter plays for like 6-7 yards. Like I think that's going to be the tight ends, really.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can really show up and play their kind of game, like I feel like that's the one area I'm like, I really hope we get something out of the tight ends this week.
Yeah, so a key to me as well on the defensive end is Notre Dame has some key injuries on the offensive line. Like you can't get pushed around by their second string and expect to win this game. So we have to be able to, and again, this kind of goes back to me thinking on paper that this is the best defensive team we've had talent-wise. We have a very deep defensive line group, and you got to hope everybody's healthy, of course, but so long as they are, and you're heading into this game where they're not fully healthy, you have to take advantage of that. So you have to get pressure with your front 4 and 5 on some plays, because I'm not like, I do talk about blitzing all the time. There are some plays where you need to just do, back them out, do zone coverage, keep everyone honest, throw them off rhythm. But then there's other times where you need to disguise your blitzes and blitz and bring pressure. So there will be times where I think you need to get a lot of push with your defensive line, and with this running attack, that's their strength. I mean, Riley Leonard's thrown for I believe 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. So they are, and I mean 500 something yards. I think 587 yards, 1 touchdown, 2. Yep. So, and then of course they've run for 6.4 yards per attempt with all of their running backs and quarterback. So that's going to be their strength. Defensive line is going to have to get a good push. Some other key things. I know Notre Dame ranks number 6 in pass efficiency, and they're 8th in interceptions. They already have 6 interceptions this year. So that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where they think they have opportunities for turnovers that other teams maybe don't have. And I kind of tried to think when I saw that of some opportunities there. One play that kind of stuck out in my head in the last game was when Tyler Shuck got walloped, and he threw a long ball. I mean, he threw a good ball to Jamari Johnson, but I do think with better defenders, a better secondary, that ball probably gets picked off, because there was 2 guys right back there, and they just got out of position somehow. And I think those are the kind of plays they're looking at. And they're like, that, if he would have just kept going, he would have had an interception there. So you got to be careful on the road, especially if the conditions aren't good. Just throwing those kind of balls up when there's 2 defenders in the area.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful there. Of course, the counter argument is it should have been pass interference. And I watched, and he did grab his left shoulder and yanked it, but we're not going to talk about the officiating in that game because it was god awful. I just hope there's not ACC rest for this. I'm not sure if it probably is, because it's a road game and we're the ACC team. I hope not. Most people love their own conference to officiate their games, not me.
Not us. Well, you knew it was going to be bad when the first flag took about 10 minutes to figure out what was going on, man. I mean, that they could have ran about 2 commercial breaks before the guy finally got the call right, man. That was ridiculous.
It was,
Yeah.
dude. That's why I have a voice until today. I finally, it's still a little raspy, but
Dude, and that timeout was awful. Like,
I was
dude, there's
screaming
no
at the
way he
refs
got
every
that
time
off.
they got close enough, which I was, my seats were pretty good. I was close enough to where they could hear me a little bit, I think. You know, you have to yell with a little bit of volume, but I think they could hear me. And hey, Andrew's in the chat. Thank him, man, because Ticketmaster, I figured out what happened in hindsight. Ticketmaster went down Saturday morning. And so I went to claim my tickets like I always do, right before I go in. Now I know people have always said you're supposed to do it within 48 hours. Well, I've just never done that. I just forget. It's not that I do it on purpose, but then I won't even think about it. I'll buy my tickets and they'll say soon you'll receive a confirmation email with your tickets. And then like if I don't see it immediately, it's out of my head. It's out of my mind. So I go to the game, I get to the alley usually, I eat, and then right before I walk in, I get on there. It could be 2-3 weeks after I purchase the tickets and I can get in. But I couldn't. It would not let me claim my tickets. It was like every time you go to accept my tickets, it say, "Oops, there's something wrong." And so I was on the phone for an hour. I sent something in their little chat, and they're like, "We will try to get to you within 4 hours." I was like, "Well, that's not going to work." So I stayed on hold and this and that, and I didn't think I was about to head out and go back home, even though hiking an hour and 15 minutes to get down there. And I'm like, well, I look at my nephew. I'm like, we're just going to have to go, man. But thankfully, Andrew came through in the clutch with a couple of tickets, and they were good seats too.
I wonder if you got our tickets. Because I couldn't go because I had that wedding. So I wonder if Andrew gave you our tickets.
He might have, because he was like, I got one ticket, and that would make sense. And then he's like,
Yeah.
I was like, well, I can't because me and my nephew were there. But anyway, appreciate it, man. That came through, and appreciate that. But man, you guys have good seats. Those are good
Yeah,
seats.
man, we got. Was it like 50-yard line?
Yeah,
Like 20
50-yard line,
rows up?
like 7 or 8 rows up, maybe.
Yeah. No, yeah. We lucked kind of into those seats. We used to sit up in the flight deck, and then I don't know, 3 years ago they offered us to go down there for like, I don't know, $50 more a ticket for the year, which was
It's not bad.
Yeah, good seats, man. Anyway, it was much appreciated. Able to go. It was a great game to experience. But I know somebody asked if any of us were going to South Bend. Speaking of that, and I know I'm not. I'm tied down in this area this weekend. It's just too far to go. You have to make a whole weekend out of it almost, and I just can't. Josh, I know you're in Iowa, and Pat, I don't know if you're going or not.
Yeah, I was supposed to be going to the lake this weekend, and that fell through. But it's really hard with a 2 and a 4-year-old. It's hard to do road trips, man. When they're like 3 years from now, when they can come with me,
that's where I'm at.
I'll be going on a lot of road trips. But
Yeah.
hard to do with 2 kiddos that young.
But I will be there next week. Next week I'll be there.
Yeah. Josh, well, I'm looking forward to you coming down. But anybody going to the Notre Dame game? I went when we won. I don't know how long ago that was. 6 years
2014.
ago. Yeah. Oh God, that was that long ago. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so. Reggie Bonifon.
So 10 years ago. But I had a great time there. The stadium's got a nostalgic feel. It's not like an awesome like NFL stadium with all the bells and whistles, but you feel like you're watching Rudy from the stands. And the one thing I will say is it's hard to find parking to tailgate and stuff. So like if you're wanting to tailgate and wanting to find parking, you got to get up there early, man. Otherwise you're going to have to like probably park somewhere and Uber or drive a long way. And also there's not at least from what I remember, there's not a ton of like food options there. So make sure if you're tailgating, you got a grill or have brought some food from on the way.
Mike, it was in 2014. We won 31-28, November 22nd, 2014. I just knew that because I was thinking that's when Reggie Bonifant was the quarterback, because after that, it was mainly Brock or I mean, it was mainly Kyle Bowen and Lamar Jackson the following year, going back
Yeah.
and forth for a while. But anyway, so it should be a fun game for those of you that are going. That I've not been able to go there. Well, yeah, I mean, you might have been there, but I'm literally looking at the article from November 22nd, 2014. I mean, and then there's another one that says 2014 Louisville 31. Yeah, I mean, the entire internet's not I don't know. But maybe it's wrong, but I felt like it was 2014. I know we played them in a COVID year. I want to say that was 2021, but I'm not as confident in that date.
And it was Satterfield, and
Yeah.
we were. It was like we were up like 7-6 late or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember that game. That was like, obviously we didn't win, but it was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. But that was the most dull football game I think I've ever watched.
Couch House, he's messing with you. He's in our group chat. He gets bored and he gets on this kick and just makes up a name and of a recruit and says, like, you got to watch out for this guy. He actually was saying he was on our current team and telling Notre Dame they need to watch out for him this weekend. But anyway, I guess tell you what, let's just head into predictions, guys, as far as what you expect to see and then what final score you're going to give. Pat, I'll start with you.
Hey, Pat, could I read something real quick? I just want to give our numbers from last week.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know if y'all remember, Pat, you were 34-21. I was 30-21. Kyle, you were 34-24.
I changed mine because you had the same. I had 30-20.
The same one. Yeah.
And
so and the actual was 31-19. So like we were all
right there, man.
Yeah, like
all right. So now because maybe we've got
now
some
the pressure's
magic,
on.
I'm gonna have to pick a win here to compete.
Yeah.
I'll have to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't feel horrible about this game. I don't feel great about it. I think most people lie on one side or the other there. I've heard people that think we're just going to go in there. It's going to be a automatic win. I've heard other people that are like, listen, I don't think we have much of a chance. I'm kind of in the middle. I think it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the episode. You've got to clean up stuff. You've got, can't have in a road environment like this, you can't have big time penalties that are wiping out big plays. You can't turn the ball over, which we haven't done this year. You've got to keep that trend going. I think we're going to have to get a big turnover at some point. But I think for the most part, this is going to be a grinded out game, especially if it's a little wet out there. I think our run defense is going to have to come, show that it's one of the elite run defenses in the nation again, which I think we are with our defensive line. And I've been impressed by some of our young linebackers. We cannot give up the big plays on defense. Mm-hmm. You can't have those drive killing defensive plays where you've got them at 3rd and long, and then you give up, a pass over the middle for 20 yards. So limiting big plays, and cleaning up some stuff is key for me, but I don't see either team scoring in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go 24-21 Cards.
That's pretty close to what I was thinking, Pat. So I think there's 2 big keys for me, one on offense, one on defense. I think the big one is, we talked about miscommunications in the secondary and some of the times where our safeties got beat deep, like in a prevent defense, like those things cannot happen. But it's mid-season. Like, is that a personnel issue? Well, you can't really do much about that if that's what, you think it is. If you don't think it's scheme, right, which it very well could be scheme, but if it's a player issue, how do you fix that? And the only way you can help those guys out is the front 4 have to get pressure. So, like, if you can get pressure, like, you have less time for miscommunication, those long developing routes, they can't get downfield. Like, you have to force the quarterback to make a mistake. Like that's how you cover up some of those secondary issues. Is you have a great you put a lot of pressure on the other quarterback. So that's one thing I think we have to do. And then you guys touched on it earlier, but I mean, we have to scheme a touchdown or touchdowns. Like Jeff Brom needs to be in his bag. Like defense needs to be in their bag. Like we need to bring it on both sides, but like not from a player like the coaches are who I'm worried about. So, if the coaches bring their A game, we get good pressure on the QB so the secondary doesn't get burned like deep. Like I don't even want to get into that before halftime throw, but like I think 21-13 would probably be my prediction, Pat. I think one score, it's going to be an ugly game, but again, we're going to have to scheme something up because it's going to be tough.
So a lot of my prediction comes with a caveat of I don't think the weather's going to be very good, which much benefits Notre Dame compared to us, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. But I think the advantage that we have is passing the football. I don't think we're a better rushing team than Notre Dame. Now, you could make I still don't think even in the first 2 weeks we were better. I think Notre Dame's a top 5 rushing offense in the country. And the stats actually back me up on that. But I think that anyway. I've watched a couple of their games now, and they just have multiple good running backs, a running quarterback, and they have really good run blocking. Now with the injuries on their offensive line, maybe that changes a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, they've got some real talent in that backfield, and they seem to have a good system in place to get their guys out in the open field, getting bulk plays. So I don't think we're going to beat Notre Dame in a run versus a run game. And I unfortunately think that the wind and the rain, if this hurricane remnant, if the timing works out the way it looks like it will, I think that's going to create some issues there. It's going to, I mean, we might still have a little bit of a passing game, but I think it really mitigates it. And so that concerns me. Also, being our first real road test, after some things I saw, I would have to really feel more confident in our defense communicating with each other effectively. It just worries me a little bit in that regard. I think that both teams really need this game, but Notre Dame in particular, if they lose after losing to Northern Illinois, which I know people point to that and say, well, they're not as good as people think. I really think that Northern Illinois game for Notre Dame was like our Pittsburgh game last year. I think they just went into it like lackadaisical. And should they have? No. But I think if they played Northern Illinois 5 more times, they probably win all 5. I think it was just that weird hangover type of game where you didn't come in focused, and we see it all the time in college football. So I don't think there's any lasting effects from that. And I think at Notre Dame, first road game with the weather, I just think it's going to be a tough ask. I think they're going to come in here fighting for their lives, because let's be honest, like, yeah, we want to win this game, obviously, but we could lose to Notre Dame and still make the college football playoff. We could still win the ACC. This is not an ACC game, whereas Notre Dame is independent. They cannot lose to really anybody, but it's still really fresh, that loss. It was only 3 weeks ago, maybe. And that's they obviously remember last year, so they're not going to be like unfocused. When they came to play us last year, I think we were their 3rd night game in a row, their 3rd huge game in a row. Now that they've played a couple of teams that they've just walloped, and it hasn't been close. And I just think the situation, it really benefits them. And I don't want people to think when I say I think we're going to lose this game. I mean, I'm just being honest. I actually predicted this before the year started. I'm not really wavering based on what I've seen. I just hope I'm wrong. But I don't think it means that we're a bad team or anything. I just think that they are going to. I mean, they didn't really wallop Miami of Ohio, but I mean that game was never in question, really. in my opinion. But I mean, I don't know. People can disagree. And they did wallop Purdue. I know that was like 66-7.
Yeah, that
So
was
I
Yeah.
just think anyway, long story short, I'm gonna say that Notre Dame's rushing attack leads them to victory. I think the final score is going to be like 28-17. I think we might struggle a little bit. I think we're going to see our first turnovers. Hopefully, I'm hoping for one turnover at most, but I could see two or three. Hopefully, not two or three, but it wouldn't surprise me either, especially if the conditions are bad. So I've got that. I think that really, if the weather if the weather can turn around, then to me it's a toss up. It's a pick 'em. If we can pass the ball and the conditions aren't affecting our passing, I don't know, guys. Like, I think it's going to be really close. I'd still probably pick Notre Dame in like a 28-24 type of win, but we could win. But I think if the weather's bad, I just don't think we can do it, and I hope I'm wrong. And I'm assuming the weather is going to be bad.
Yeah, no, I think the weather plays a key role in this game for sure. I agree with you that we need the pass to be able to win this game and be the difference maker. I haven't seen enough in our run game to think that it can be the thing that leads us to victory.
Yeah, I think there definitely are still some question marks about Notre Dame. Like, I think we still don't quite know who they are. Like, the Purdue game and the Illinois State game, it's too schizophrenic. Like, who's the real Notre Dame? Like, I think this game will go a lot for both teams to know, like, okay, is Louisville a playoff team? Or if we go out there and heaven forbid, like, they outclass us or something, like, then we all feel like, okay, maybe we don't know who we are, right? But I think this game can tell a lot about not just where both teams are at, but also, the ACC race. Like, are we going to be a true contender for that as well? So that's really what I'll be looking to.
Yeah, this is a game where if we had obviously you want to win every game, and that's the hope. But if we had a close loss, a respectable loss at Notre Dame, where it just came down to the end and we just didn't make quite enough plays or whatever the case may be, or maybe we even shot ourselves in the foot or something, you're not going to be happy that you lost, but you're not going to be, or at least I won't be super concerned. I'll be like, look, it's a rough environment. We play good. But if we go out there and get our asses kicked, that'll be like that'll tell me like, hey, we got some stuff to fix, and I don't know if we're going to be able to. That'll be where my concerns come in. So you got to hope for a win. It's going to be tough, and I think they're going to be ready. I don't think we're going to get the Jekyll and Hyde Notre Dame where they're not playing up to par. I think we're going to get a focused, locked-in Notre Dame team.
Mm-hmm.
So injuries are key, though. And with us even, like, here's the thing. We never know until like 5 minutes before the game starts, which I know it's for gamesmanship, but it's kind of frustrating because, like, to me, all these predictions go out the window if you get to game time and they're like, Quincy Riley's not playing, but, oh, by the way, Ja'Cory Brooks is out now, and Colin Lacey's not coming back.
Right.
And Isaac Brown's hurt, too. And it's like – and we've seen this happen. Last year we saw it, and we've seen it happen a little bit even this year. That would and so it's like you kind of forget, or you kind of talk about these and you don't really know. But with Notre Dame, we know they've got some injuries, so hopefully we get our guys back, at least most of them. Oh, I accidentally hit a button there. Oh, yeah, hopefully we get our guys back. Quincy Riley hopefully can play. That's important. If he's out, that could change things, even though they're not known for their passing. Of course, weather dependent as well. It might not matter as much if he's out if the weather is bad, because it'll be a running type of thing. But we'll see what happens there. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts, but I'm excited about the game. This is the kind of games that you live for. You're undefeated. You're both in the top 20. It's a big game, and I see some Notre Dame haters in social media downplaying it, just like they did last year. But at the end of the day, here we are again, ranked, and they don't have to admit it. It's a big game.
Yep.
So it's exciting. This is what you live for, to go up to South Bend and play Notre Dame. for us older fans, I know Pat, me and you are the same age. Like it was just 15 years ago that our biggest game of the year was against Southern Miss or TCU.
Yeah.
15.
No, I mean,
No, it was more than 15 years ago. I'm old.
it's probably like
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
We
But no, I mean,
joined Big East in 2005.
This is a game you circle on the schedule as a fan, as a coach, as a player. It's a game that you shouldn't need any additional hype to get ready for. I'm excited to see what we can do. I think it's like you said, Kyle, it's not the end of the world if we lose, but this is the litmus test to determine if we really are a playoff quality team.
Yeah.
You can't go into Notre Dame and get your ass whipped.
Yeah.
And say that, I think we can make the playoffs at the end of the year. So if we lose, it's not the end of the world, but the way we play is kind of going to show us, can we beat Miami? Can we beat Clemson? Do we have a shot to get into and win an ACC championship game? So it's a big litmus test, and it's hopefully one we'll win. And I'm pumped for 3:30 on Saturday, man. Sometimes I like these big games when they're away games. It calms my nerves a little bit because I'm not like amped up to go to the game. And I can kind of relax a little bit. So I'm pumped to watch the game, get with some other Louisville fans and complain and about the lows, celebrate the highs, and hopefully come out at 7:00 with a victory.
Man, you talk about like getting hyped up before a game. I don't know what my deal was. I've calmed down a lot in my older age compared to when I was younger, but I was keyed up that entire Georgia Tech game, despite how hot it was, despite everything. I was just wound up, and I feel like the people around me probably thought I was insane because it was like 13 or 14-year-old me like yelling at the games came out in that game. I think it's a combination of, we started out, we were down 7-0. Every time we made a big play, the referees called it back. Some of the crap, the timeout, the play where they completed it, and then when you saw the replay, they clearly did not complete it. He had no possession going out of bounds. They reviewed it. They still didn't overturn it. A lot of that going on. And, it just had me wound up. So it probably is good, like you said, Pat, to watch this at home because I can't be that wound up in my older age all the time. I can't be that way. I just can't. And I'm glad it was just me and my nephew. I don't think my wife would have been too impressed because she likes to watch the games and go with me. But she hasn't seen that side of me other than like when we play UK in either sport, I tell her not to come near me. I tell everybody to stay away from me. That's my tradition. If I don't go to the game with somebody, I watch the game alone in that game because I'm too much during the UK. I hate them. I hate them with every fabric of my being, and I get really emotionally invested. So I just don't want anybody near me. But she hasn't really seen that side of it because I pushed her away, is my point. And I don't think against Georgia Tech she would have been too impressed when I'm yelling bullshit at the refs and everything else. I actually led a bullshit chant. It started to gain steam, but then they came out and played some music over it. So which was good because I don't want that.
Yeah. No, I think, for me, it's really just what team do we see? Do we come out? Do the coaches bring their A game? Like, are we going to bring it? But yeah, Kyle, I think it's funny because Louisville basketball gets me fired up like that. Like I've always been like, it's a different level of intense. Like my buddies from Iowa, when they watch me watch Louisville basketball, they're like, that's not normal. Like guys, that's not the way that people react to basketball because they just don't hear. They don't get it. And so the last time I felt this way was in football would have been that Wake Forest game. Like
the Evan Conley game?
Dude, yes.
Oh, that was
I was like, yeah. Like I was very, very, very into that game. Like that
Well, and
was
that's kind of how
was
that Georgia
wild.
Tech game was.
Yeah.
Not to the
Yeah.
scoring extent, but it was just back and forth.
and
It reminded
forth.
me when I played college football 25. I think I'm going to get a win, and then they come back, and then
Yeah.
I can't guard a freaking statue in that game. But we're not going to talk about that.
Dude.
So
No.
yeah. There's just some games that do that. Like I'll give you an example. I did try to watch a UK basketball game. It was at Rupp, but I had convinced myself we were going to lose the game just because it was at Rupp. Like this was back when we were just losing I mean, I guess we still are losing every game, but to them, unfortunately. But I'm thinking like this was the Chris Mack year when we shot 40% from the free throw line, and we went in overtime because we couldn't hit free throws, and Jordan Wara missed the putback uncontested and did diddly squat that entire game.
Yeah.
And we still almost won. Well, I was watching with a bunch of family during that game, and I was like, I'll keep my cool because I don't think we're going to win anyway. The first foul call, I'll take my hat off and launch it and scream. The first foul call. It's like 19 minutes left in the first half, and like then it's like, well, you've already seen the worst of me now, so it's just all downhill from here. And so, yeah. Anyway. I decided at that moment, like I'm done watching UK with anybody. If I go to the game, I'm better because like there's UK fans there, and I know I'll end up in jail. Like that TBT game we went to.
Yeah.
Douchebags that sat behind us made the game about themselves instead of about watching the game. They literally would not shut up, and they were continue to boo. All the things you see online was those guys manifest in the real world. So I said some things to them, but I was like, just don't take a swing, man. Don't end up in jail. You're too damn old. And my God, my wife would not bail me out if she found out I was swinging. She'd be like, idiot, you can just stay down there. So like, and I mean, but I was getting mad, and I was like, but I let it go. But when I'm watching it and I'm not there, like I'm unhinged. I can't watch with anybody. You probably need me in damn shackles like Hannibal Lecter when they roll him out. And he's got the chain shackles or like Bane and Batman. Like that's me. That's me watching them play UK. Like you got to shackle my ass out there and make sure I'm chained to something. You got to feed me, like spoon feed me, like pureed food through like a hole or something. It's just, I'm a different human being.
I'm right there with you, man, for UK games.
But
I can't. I gotta be by myself.
I should be confident.
The UK cow.
Yeah.
Oh, one last thing. Thank you, Louisville. Even though this was completely coincidental, I know it had nothing to do with me. But on September 18th, I sent out a little Tweety poo, and what did I put? I put the icy whites, baby. And I shared it, and I was like, man, please wear these against Notre Dame. And I mean, that post took off, and it was retweet after retweet. And, I looked at the likes to see if any coaches liked it, and I had 2 coaches like it. And so I started to kind of think, like, maybe these are the uniforms we're going to wear, because Notre Dame's wearing all greens. To me, it just makes sense. And so sure enough, like, they released it today. They're wearing them. I'm just hyped. I'm excited.
We're gonna win or lose in style, man.
That's right. That's right.
There's not a better uniform to wear for that game. So that being said, I've kind of rambled at the end here. Sorry, guys. I know you all probably got to go to bed. I'm pulling a Rambling Ross here at the end.
We had to get Ross's spirit in here somehow.
That's right.
He's just been busy, but he'll be back eventually. Yeah. But anyway, if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Big game. If you're going, yell as loud as you can. Try not to get arrested. But no, the Notre Dame's fans aren't that bad. But it'll be great. Have fun, guys. Drive safe to and from, and we'll be watching from where we watch it from. And until next time, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Third Banner Pod. Please like and subscribe. That being said, go Cards.